Hey guys, it's Effie. Welcome back to my channel. Today is day 6 of Vlogmas, and I'm having a talk with Cristina from Arthritis Dietitian. She is a registered dietitian, and she also happens to be living with rheumatoid arthritis. And so I wanted to talk to her today to pick her brain on what she thinks about everything from the latest diet trends to food fear, how to go about the elimination diet, and any other holiday tips or advice she has for you guys and that she uses herself. So stay tuned because that's coming all right up. Today we're just going to talk about the Mediterranean diet and like other things in relation to that, because I saw that article that you're in for the US News and World Report, and that was amazing that you were featured in that.
It was so strange how it happened because what actually I will show you that book, and I think I've been promoting it a lot because I love it. It's that right? So make everyday Mediterranean. So I actually joined that challenge right at the beginning of the year. So they wanted to do that story back in March, and then the pandemic happened. So then the editor reached out to me. It's like, let's do it again. And so we kind of worked on the whole article, and I really liked it. I really enjoyed it.
I just want to have you share a little bit about your journey and what made you want to become a dietitian. Did that happen before or after your diagnosis?
Well, no, for the dietitian, it happened before my diagnosis. I studied nutrition probably 4 years before, and I was diagnosed right when I started my internship with my clinical nutrition. So it was really tough to finish that.
How did you mold your RA journey and your lifestyle changes? Did you have to sort of go on that route where you did the elimination diet and found out food triggers? How did you deal with all that?
You know what? I only was able to identify the triggers when I came to Canada.
Oh, okay.
And I think it was very interesting because back home, right, everything was really fresh, kind of natural, right? Like there's not really a lot of pesticides where I grew up. When I came to Canada, that was in 2007, I couldn't eat for almost a year. I live off of Ensure. I don't know, it like something it was a cultural shock, and I wasn't used to all the canned foods and the soups and so the preserved foods, the processed foods. I like, what is this? It was really like a shock to my body, and that's where all my food sensitivities kind of began when I came to Canada.
Okay, so did you have the diagnosis of RA before you came to Canada too?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed in Colombia. And even though like a nutrition was taking a kind of a part of it, but it wasn't as big as it's right now, right? When everybody's talking about nutrition and lifestyles, there's still a lot of myths, like the nightshades, there's still been a myth, like I think forever. But then now, and the nightshades and the milk, but I think now that we know that it's so individualized that it's not going to trigger everyone. Right. So I think that's when we started to differentiate. When I studied nutrition, I was in Colombia. I wanted to feed our children and our pregnant women. I was working in food security. So I never really thought of like nutrition and autoimmune disease at that time. That wasn't really my priority. And I thought, how could food harm you? Right. Yeah. So it was a lot of process for me to think that food was actually affecting the way I was managing my RA or my other autoimmune diseases.
Yeah, that is interesting. I know like a lot of people put emphasis on the medications, and then some people try to just take care of the disease just with diet, and I know for some people it's worked, but it depends on the severity of the condition. I know I had one rheumatologist say that her cousin was able to heal his RA following a gluten-free diet. That didn't work for me, of course. I recommend you follow your doctor's instructions, but everyone's different. I know for me, nightshades are not all bothersome. I have tomatoes. I have cooked eggplant. Like, I don't think it's good to avoid those things. I know in the beginning years, I was like really fearful of like eating certain things to not flare. Food fear. Did you ever experience that at all?
You know what? I didn't, because I'm a recovered bulimic.
Okay.
So when I had to kind of step away from that fear of food. So that was actually like a therapy. So to come back and coming back to all these restrictions and eliminations, it was like a flashback. It was like, so am I going to become bulimic again? Like in order to treat my disease? So that's when I started taking like a different approach. And when I started kind of learning more about the Mediterranean diet, because even though back home we follow those principles, right? Like I eat lots of vegetables and the
Yeah.
whole, right, kind of thing. So there are certain things that we didn't use and that I learned here in Canada, like the amount, like the extra virgin olive oil, all the different spices. So that was an addition, and that's how it kind of started to feel like I still can have a healthy relationship with the food without kind of eliminating. However, I did experience, I did have to go through some sort of elimination because, like I told you, 2007 was terrible. I have a huge, like a horrible bout of IBS, or irritable bowel syndrome, which I know is connected with my Sjogren's syndrome. And so at that time, I was still learning about the low FODMAP diet. So those about eliminating those fermentable fibers, and it worked. Right. So for me, I couldn't believe it. I didn't want to believe, but it worked for me.
Yeah, and I was
So
going to ask you about those diets that we all see, like the paleo, the AIP, FODMAP. Like you say, the FODMAP worked for you. Do you believe in those type of things? Like, do you think that there are long-term solutions, or it's like short term?
I think there's short-term solutions, like the FODMAP diet, like you're actually eliminating healthy foods, right? Like apples and pears, like for instance, or mushrooms. It's like, really? Why am I eliminating those things? Like, I love that. Like, I love it. Or beans. I grew up eating beans. Like, come on.
Right.
So, but then I think a changing of environment, right? Because I was in a different environment here. So that's where you need that guidance. So thankfully, like having the knowledge as a dietitian, I was able to go through that elimination process. And it was probably just 3 weeks. And then after 3 weeks, I started the process of reintroducing the foods that potentially kind of say, okay, let's give it a try. But I think that's why it's so important to have that guidance with a professional or registered dietitian, because you can have that food fear, like that fear for food. And I said, no, I'm not going to eat apples ever again in my life. Right? Even though they say 1 apple a day, right?
Right.
So that's the problem with the elimination diets, with any of them, like whenever how they name it, like the paleo diet, and they say, well, this is how, they ate like 1,000 years ago. And in my head, it's like, well, they also lived up until like 30 years.
Right.
They have like a short lifespan. So how can that be relevant here at this age, right? So we really need to adjust to what we have available. So like right now, I don't have my fresh papayas anymore. So I kind of have to get used to the apples again in Canada, or like a squash, right? Like things that I never used. So I think we need to really adjust to what is available. But I think because so many people are looking for that natural way of healing, right? That natural way, and they kind of scare them away from the therapies, so they can try everything. And my fear is that they go for the paleo diet, right? Then and they say, oh, that didn't work. Let's go try the AIP protocol, right? Diet. So they go through another elimination process, and then go into, oh, let's try the Walls protocol. So on one hand, they tell you, do not eat grains, do not eat nightshades, do not eat meat. And on the other hand said, oh, you have to eliminate meat. You have to eliminate. And it's like, it's so confusing.
Yeah, it is. It's overwhelming. I know for me, like I didn't really always follow through with these diets. I know I tried some of that stuff and it was just too much for me, like the paleo diet. It actually flared me up more. So like then kind of what works for you. I know for me, like I have a gluten antibody. I have the non-celiac gluten sensitivity. I have a gene to celiac. So I have to avoid gluten right now for the time being. My doctor said over time, if you heal your gut more, you may be able to have a piece of bread again. And, I'm leading toward that direction. And like for milk, I have an allergy to casein. That's just like what makes the cheese stringy. But that's like something that's a big trigger for everyone, not even with if you have arthritis or not, right? I know some people who dairy bothers them and they don't have autoimmune disease. So it's just something to consider, that I think the environment we live in also plays a role. And I want to ask, like when you were living in Colombia, were your RA symptoms like less severe than they were when you came here? Did you flare more there? Was it the same?
No, really. Like
Yeah.
it was the same, right? And it was really bad. Like,
Yeah.
and strangely enough, I flare up at the same times as here, like in this it's spring and the
Oh,
fall. Even though
oh.
we didn't have those stations, like we don't have the seasons there, I flare up the same times. It's like that's so weird.
I wonder if it's a
um,
connection between like stressful, like just holiday events, or who knows? I don't know, but it's
but that's the one thing. Like a diet is just one piece of the puzzle,
it is.
right?
Yes.
It's just the one thing. And now we know that like you have all these different practices like a meditation or yoga, exercise, so many different tools that you have to use to heal yourself, and in addition to the therapies. Because people ask me, I said, oh no, I just want to do diet. And I said, well, in my experience, once I had my therapies, then I could have a semi-normal life
Yeah.
and be functional. If I just did diet, I would be on probably not functional at all,
Right.
right? Because it's almost been like 20 years with this too. So it's that's so I still kind of stick to my first rheumatologist advice, and I said, well, you choose between the RA side effects or the medications RA. Unfortunately, there's like no middle ground,
Yeah. Right. And we
right?
know,
So
yeah, we know that like not treating the disease is bad. We know that treating the disease can be bad. So where you come into the middle. And that's where like I've done the integrative approach where I do like functional medicine. I try to do all the healthy stuff on the side, but I need my medicine, for now. So
and I think that's a really good point. Like I still feel like, oh, when is it going to be a remission? They're talking about remission, and I said, well, I haven't reached that yet.
yeah, me neither.
And I,
That's the goal.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, and I kind of want to point out, because I know a lot of people, they go like on a gluten-free diet, and I want to kind of get back to that because I shared the same thing as you.
Okay.
I didn't want to believe that I had a sensitivity to gluten. Like honestly, I was so upset. Said, I don't believe it. And I know, so for so many people, oh, it's a fat diet. But again, like we do have that genetic, like the gene for the celiac disease. And because I was not able to tolerate the gluten challenge to do the endoscopy, right? So the doctor, again, they told me to just, 100% gluten free. And so the problem with that is I guess the challenge is with some people, they go on a gluten-free diet and they say they haven't done any of the testing at all. And maybe they might have the celiac disease, right? And they're still harming their gut by eating small amounts of gluten. So that's really what I want. I believe them when they tell me they're sensitive to gluten, right? But
Yeah.
I also, I really encourage them to get tested and get ruled out any other, like if they have celiac disease before trying a gluten-free diet.
Yeah. I think that's obviously the best approach because you don't want to avoid something when you don't necessarily have to avoid it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I know they say for autoimmune diseases to avoid it, it's best. But again, I think like when we're coming back down to the basics, it's all how the processed food is around us now that is affecting us. If we have the true ancient grains or like the real type of gluten, and I don't think it would bother people, but it's the processed stuff that we're all seeing here now. I wanted to ask, like, how do you deal with like the holidays and stuff when it comes to eating food? Do you have a cheat day or like, are you, you know what I mean? Like we have the holidays coming up. So I just want to know, like, how do you deal with all that? And from a
I
nutritionist, dietitian perspective.
from the
Yeah.
dietitian's perspective, like, you know what, I do enjoy my treats, right? Like I don't really deny myself like like a small treat, right? Like as long as everything around, like everything else around it is still kind of follow that anti-inflammatory kind of approach, right? So if I'm having like my whole grains kind of breakfast or whatever you can eat, right, and your bunch of vegetables, but if I want to eat a tres leches, like a piece of tres leches cake, I really want to enjoy it, right? Like, because it's just that I don't want to feel guilty about it. And I still want to be able to enjoy those little treats with the family, with our bubbles, right? Because now we cannot really go out and have these treats. Maybe this is an advantage to the pandemic because we're really not tempted to go to the office streets and then
Right.
you go to the parties and then the Christmas parties. So now you can actually control those treats at home because you're not really
That's true.
have access to so many of them. But I think it's just keeping that balance, right? And generally, because of all my food sensitivities, I actually kind of bring my own treats anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's probably a way to manage it. But I think it's just really just enjoy it. You just don't have to go overboard, because I feel like when you completely eliminate something, it can happen. Once, you may just not have desire for it at all. And two, when you see it, you just want to eat it all.
Well, you just reminded me of something. When I started eliminating, I would like be really a big sweet tooth. And then when I stopped all that stuff, like I would be able to pass the candy aisle, not care for it. So when you said that, like you won't care for it anymore, I don't care for it. And I have my own treats. And I know like as a teenager growing up with juvenile arthritis, my mom sometimes, and she sometimes still does, makes two different types of the same dish, but in my version. You know, so then I can enjoy alongside with them. I talked to a couple other people with arthritis too, and their moms have done that too. So it's nice that you can try to find so many ways now to go about things. Like there's so many cookbooks, so many blogs out there that wasn't around back in 2007 or 2005, right? So
Oh, yeah.
a lot of people are blessed with that now and they should take advantage. I mean, so any lasting thoughts you want to leave off with people before we end our call today, our quick chat?
A quick chat. I know it is like a so super quick. I think it's important like not to kind of practice that food shaming, because I think we're seeing that a lot now with autoimmune conditions. And I even see like when you're doing a following, it's like, well, do this diet, do that diet, and like, why are you doing that, right? So I think we have to kind of move away from the food shaming and find the right guidance for you that can help you really guide you through that kind of nutrition journey, because everyone is different. And even though, like you said, there's a lot of information out there, so that is like a double-edged sword too, right? It can make it so confusing. So having someone who has a lived experience, like I have arthritis, and I'm a registered dietitian, so I can understand what people are going through. I can understand medications and side effects. So everything that perhaps maybe another dietitian that doesn't kind of work in that field can understand. But I think guidance is so important, because that's really my message, is that avoid food shaming, be compassionate to yourself, right? We go through a lot already with this disease, and find the right guidance for you, right? Like don't be afraid to reach out, like and get like a credible sources. Like we have like incredible people out there that are doing like this service with nutrition. So get out there and enjoy life. I think we still need to find a way to enjoy life to the fullest.
So do you offer any services for people? Do you have clients now, or what are you up to?
So I do it mostly like education through my blogs. I do one-on-one client through a physiotherapy clinic, which I'm looking forward to do a program with him. He is a physiotherapist who's actually specialized in arthritis. So he's one of the unique kind of professionals here in Canada that has a designation to work specifically with people with arthritis. So things like how we are moving towards like working on a program that we can integrate not only nutrition, but also like exercise that is catered to people with arthritis.
Okay, so you're not seeing any clients right now, like virtually or anything, but do you plan to do that?
No, I do see clients. I am seeing clients, right? But I think I take it because I mentioned like I do have like a full-time job, so I do my arthritis dietitian like on a part-time basis. So I do see clients mostly on the weekend, and also through the physiotherapy clinic. But I do enjoy writing my blogs and like having my nutrition students who don't have any of the autoimmune diseases, and they're learning a lot about it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So they have a good teacher. And so let's tell people where they can find you at, if they want to connect or have any questions.
Yeah, so they can find me at www.arthritisdietitian.com, and also all my handles on Facebook and Instagram is Arthritis Dietitian.
Well, I'll have all those on the description link below, so you guys can go directly to Cristina and find her as well.
Yeah, I'm open to anything. Sometimes I start like one counseling and start talking about like the condition, how they feel, and you know what? That's fine. If people don't want to talk about nutrition, there's so many other things that are overwhelming, and then and that's fine too.
Quickly, I wanted to ask, do you help people like with who may have arthritis or even not? Do they have sometimes weight loss or weight gain issues? Do you help them with that?
I will help them with them, and I can say there is not a magic pill, because I get people kind of expect to have like a quick results in like 2 weeks, and that's not going to happen, especially with us. And then suddenly you get like a high dose of prednisone that throws everything off the chart, right?
For sure.
So I think we need to be very realistic of our expectations when it comes to weight gain and weight loss. But definitely I can help with that, and because it's a big deal. But also bothers me, but every time a person goes with arthritis to the physician, I said, you need to lose weight. okay, I can't move, I can't,
Right.
I'm not able to prepare like my healthy meals because I'm way too fatigued. Can you tell me how to do that? No, just lose weight. That's gotta change.
Yeah, it
And
does.
I,
Yeah.
right? Like in that conversation, and I'm also kind of, what is it, advocating for the rheumatologists that they don't have to work alone. They have a lot of things to do. Reach out, collaborate with us, the registered dietitian, so we can support their patients and they have like a better journey with this condition, because it's really a journey.
Yeah,
There's
my
no.
rheumatologist used to work very closely with a nutritionist back in the day. She doesn't anymore, but that's something that I think should be in offices. Sometimes when you get diagnosed, they send you to like a social worker, which is obvious
Mm-hmm.
why, it's a big change. But they should also send you to a nutritionist because my weight gain, I gained a little weight on a biologic back, 10 years ago, but then now I've lost weight while I'm on methotrexate. So my doctors are telling me
Mm-hmm.
the opposite. You need to gain weight. It's like, okay, well, I'm eating healthy. So I think the way I'm eating is for weight loss, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, where do I go? So I just wanted to ask that last question because I know
Then
it's
also,
really hard.
and you know what? I think it is true when you differentiate between the registered dietitian and nutritionist. I know in the US, there are protected titles, right? Like because they
Right.
know in Canada, there's a lot of confusion. And still in Ontario, we have the protected title is registered dietitian. Because we go through all the training and the internship, but there's a lot of like a nutritionist, holistic nutritionist to call, and they're the ones who are telling, or most of them are telling the clients, go gluten-free, dairy-free, grain-free, and everything free, and that's gonna cure you. So there's a very, very careful, like those credible sources and that the training of the person who you're working with, right?
And I also think it's important to not compare yourself to people on social media too, lastly, because,
Mm-hmm.
I think, I've even seen people are like, oh, I was able to heal going to remission by CBD oil or other things. And it's just, it's a dangerous thing that while we have all these things at our fingertips now, it's dangerous because we compare ourselves to others and we get down if someone's really fit and we can't be that fit or, whatnot. So, I mean, how do you handle that? Do you have any issues with that sometimes or?
Well, you know what? At first it was like I had to admit it was upsetting. It was like because it was like you almost feel like a cyberbullying in the online when just like, what are you doing this? But I think and it's funny that you mentioned that the CBD because that's coming up a lot. Like, oh no, I'm getting like cured by my cannabis, and I study like a medical science and like medical cannabis sciences, and I think it's just a combination. I try to kind of make it always go back to everything is a personalized approach. So if it worked for you, great, but you can't compare yourself. I have all my toolkits, but like I said, like the past 2 weeks have been kind of low, and it's mostly because of mental health stress, not really about the physical health. It's been more like the mental health. So you need to recognize what are those triggers. Sometimes it might not be physical, might not be the medication, it might be something else, right? Is it the stress at work? Is it the stress at home? It's a financial stress, right? Is it not always like they're kind of directly related to what you're eating? And even though you may have like the perfect plate, you have the half plate, the vegetable, the whole grain, right? But if your mind is so stressed out about everything else around it, that connection, like that gut brain.
Mind gut connection. Yeah, if you're sitting at a table eating a nice meal, but you're stressed, you can't digest your food. It makes a big difference.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you have to be
Exactly.
mindful. Yeah, it was really nice talking, and I think this will really be helpful for people watching
So nice to meet you.
virtual meet. Yeah. All
Take
right.
care.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye. That's all I have for today's vlog. I hope you guys found that informative and helpful in some way. If you want to connect with Cristina, all her information is in the description box below. So make sure to reach out if you have any further questions. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.